Have you ever sat alone in silence and suddenly wondered, do my children still truly understand me? At this age, we don't need much anymore. We don't expect our kids to repay us. We don't long for luxury or gifts. All we wish for is to be understood, to be seen for the things we don't say aloud, to be heard through our quiet gestures of love, and those moments when we pretend to be strong just so we don't trouble our children. The older we get, the less we speak. Not because we have nothing to say, but because the things we want to say, our children may no longer want to hear. So we hold it in, we bury it, we swallow our hopes, our sadness, and even our words of love. But some things, if left misunderstood, can become a quiet kind of loneliness that slowly wears away at the soul with time. If you've ever felt this way, then this video is for you. Today, we're sharing 7 things that many aging parents carry deep in their hearts, yet have never spoken out loud. Not because there wasn't a chance to, but because of love. Because they didn't want their children to worry, because they didn't want to seem weak. But the truth is, the heart of a parent, even if it's wrinkled, even if it has weathered many storms, still silently sacrifices, still aches each day for one simple thing. Do my children really understand me? Please stay until the end of the video. You may find pieces of yourself in these quiet confessions, and maybe, just maybe, after hearing them, you'll feel ready to share this with your own children. Not to blame, but to bring both generations a little closer, with more understanding in their hearts. And maybe you're like me, someone who has said more than once to their children, "I'm fine," or "I'm still strong," whenever they call or show concern. We don't say it because we truly feel okay. We say it because we don't want to add to their worries, not when their lives are already so full and busy. We've gotten used to hiding the shoulder pain that greets us every morning, to lying awake at night, unable to sleep. We've gotten used to the quiet loneliness, and yet we still smile every time we hear our children's voices on the phone. The truth is, we're not good at speaking our weaknesses. It's not easy to admit we're tired or feeling lost, or even quietly wondering if we're no longer as important as we once were. There are moments I've stood in front of the mirror and thought, should I just tell them that I too need to be cared for? But then, I don't, because I'm afraid of being a burden, of being pitied, of becoming someone they see as too much. But you know what? When we keep saying I'm fine, our children eventually believe we really don't need anything at all. They think we're still strong, still independent, still okay on our own. And so the distance grows, not from a lack of love, but from a lack of truth. If you're still listening now, maybe you also said, "I'm fine," when your heart felt far from it. And if this resonates with you, please leave a comment. I know this feeling. Let us remind one another that we are not alone. Maybe someone will read your words and it will give them the courage to finally speak the truth, not just to their children, but to themselves. Because in the end, admitting that we're not okay is not a sign of weakness. It's a gift. It's the moment we give our children a chance to grow up again, by learning to listen, to understand, and to return to the people who once loved them with everything they had. You know, the older I get, the more often I tell myself, it's okay, just live simply. I don't need much anymore. I've grown used to setting aside small wishes, used to stepping back so my children can live their lives in peace, used to sitting alone by the window, looking out at the garden, quietly whispering, "This is enough." But is it really enough? Do I truly expect nothing more? Or deep down, do I still wish my child would ask, "Mom, are you feeling happy these days?" Wish for a family dinner, not because it's a holiday, but simply because we missed each other. Wish for a long, warm hug from the child who hasn't been home in a while. I've realized that when I keep saying, "I don't need anything," eventually my children believe it. They get busy and they assume I'm fine, that I'm strong, that I don't need anyone. But sometimes, I'm just learning how to be quiet so I don't become a burden. As a mother, I love my children so much. I'm afraid of adding to their stress. So little by little, I begin to fade into the background of my own family. I'm sharing this not to blame anyone, but to tell my peers, we are allowed to need care, to need to be remembered, to need love. Not because we are weak, but because we are human, with hearts still longing to be connected. If you're still listening and you see yourself in these words, leave a comment below. Share something you've quietly held in your heart, something you truly need. Even if it's just a hand to hold, a simple thank you, or a day when your children come visit for no reason at all. Don't be afraid. That little act of sharing could be the bridge that helps your children understand you better, and maybe, just maybe, it will help someone else who's feeling the same kind of loneliness feel a little less alone. Because when we have the courage to say, "I need love," it's not a weakness, it's bravery. It's the moment we open our hearts to receive the love that's always been there, just waiting for us to speak it into the light. As parents, especially after we've passed 60 or 70, we've all said that familiar phrase, "I just want what's best for you." We say it with all the love, sacrifice, and countless years we've poured into raising our children. But sometimes even that well-intentioned phrase can make them feel overwhelmed or even distant. I've been there. Watching my child grow up and face the struggles of life, I just wanted to hold them, guide them, protect them from pain. Every time they made a decision that didn't align with what I thought was right, I stepped in. I thought, I've lived through this, I know better. But I forgot one important thing. My child is no longer a child. A mother's love is immense, but if it's not expressed in the right way, it can become a burden. There were times my child ended a phone call with a long sigh and no words. Times when one simple suggestion from me led to days of silence. I felt hurt. I didn't understand. Until one day, through tears, my child said, "Mom, I know you love me, but every time you give advice, I feel like I'm not good enough. It feels like you always want me to do things your way, but all I really want is to be myself." That moment stopped me in my tracks. It took me a long time to realize, loving your child doesn't mean controlling them. Caring doesn't mean constantly interfering. Sometimes the best thing we can do is to step back, listen more, and believe that our children are strong enough to walk their own paths. I'm not sharing this to say we've done something wrong, but to express a lesson learned. Love cannot thrive under pressure. Sometimes our children don't need us to direct their every step. They need us to be a safe place to return to, a place without judgment or comparison, just listening and understanding. If you've ever felt the distance between you and your child growing over the years, I invite you to share a small story in the comments below. Maybe it was the time you chose to step back and your child opened up, or the moment you let go of expectations and your embrace became gentler. You, those who are listening right now, can be the inspiration for other parents to learn a new way of loving their children, with softness and with empathy. Have you ever sat by the window, watching the clock strike 6 p.m., then 8, then 10, waiting for a call from your child that never came? Have you ever picked up your phone, typed out a message that said, "I miss you so much," and then deleted it because you didn't want to bother them? If so, please know this: you are not alone. At this age, we don't need much. We don't need money. We don't need gifts. What we long for is simple: a message, a phone call, a quiet conversation, a warm hug from our children. That alone can make our whole week brighter. But sadly, what we often receive is, "Mom, I'm busy right now. Dad, I'll call you later." And that later stretches into a week, a month, sometimes even longer. I once listened to an elderly woman share during a senior group meeting. "My child lives just 20 minutes away, but only visits once a month. They say they're busy with work, busy with their kids. Then on the weekend, they just want to rest. I understand. But understanding doesn't mean it doesn't hurt." She smiled as she said it, but her eyes were red. That smile, I think many of us have worn the same one. We don't blame our children, because yes, life is hectic and the world moves fast. But in that rush, many young people are losing something precious. Time with their parents isn't something they'll always have. With each passing day, we grow older. With each unanswered call, another quiet ache settles in. We may not say it out loud, but deep down, there's so much we wish we could share, and even more we long to hear. What's even more heartbreaking is that many parents, afraid of being a burden, choose silence. They cover their loneliness with cheerful words. I'm doing well, don't worry. Nothing's wrong, just focus on your work. But when night falls, alone in a quiet room, they hold that longing so tightly, it aches. If you're watching this video and feel like it's speaking to you, I invite you to share in the comments. What's something you wish your children understood, but never had the chance to say? Sometimes just writing it down brings relief. And maybe, just maybe, your words will reach a son or daughter scrolling by, reminding them that their parents don't ask for much, only to be remembered, to be heard, and to still feel loved. Have you ever looked around your quiet house and suddenly wondered, if I disappeared, would anyone truly notice? It may sound gloomy, but it's a thought that many people over 60 or 70 quietly carry inside, though few ever say it out loud. At this age, your children have grown. They have their own families, their own work, their own lives. Once, you were the person everyone relied on, the one they called for advice, the one they needed. But now, you feel like you've been left behind. No more calls asking, "What do you think, Mom?" No more voices calling out, "Dad, help me with this." No one needs your help the way they used to. I once heard an elderly man, well into his 80s, sigh and say, "Back then, if I so much as coughed, the whole family would worry. Now, I've been sick for days, and no one even knows." He wasn't blaming anyone, but the pain of being forgotten. It was clear in his quiet voice. That feeling of no longer being needed is like an invisible emptiness. It doesn't hurt all at once, but it wears away at the heart, slowly, silently. You begin to pull back, you stop sharing as much, you make fewer calls, and over time, you start to disappear within your own family, even though you're still right there, living in the same house. But you know what? Even if others forget, you can still remember yourself. Don't let someone else's silence erase your worth. You are still someone valuable. You still carry a lifetime of wisdom. You are still a heart that has loved deeply, and that never fades. If you've ever felt like you're no longer needed, try this. Write down 3 ways you've helped someone in your life, even something small. And if you feel comfortable, share one of them in the comments below. You might be surprised to find just how many others feel the same way. And that connection, it brings us back together, because sometimes just knowing that someone else feels the way you do is enough to remind us we're not truly alone. Have you ever woken up early in the morning, quietly made yourself a cup of tea, and suddenly thought, if one day I were no longer here, who would be the first to know? That question may seem ordinary, but in truth, it's a silent sigh, the kind felt by millions of older adults who, despite being surrounded by loved ones, still feel deeply alone. At this age, we're no longer afraid of death. We all understand that life is finite, but what makes our hearts ache is the fear of leaving without an echo. No one knowing, no one holding our hand in farewell, no one truly understanding how we lived, how we loved, and all that we quietly gave for our families. I once met a woman named Eleanor, 84 years old, living alone in a small apartment in Chicago. She wasn't seriously ill. She could still walk, still cook her own meals. But during one conversation, she teared up and said, "What I fear most isn't dying. It's dying in silence, with no one by my side, with no one calling my name." And you know what? That fear isn't weakness. It's a profoundly human longing, the longing to be seen, to be remembered, to have someone hold your hand and say, "Thank you for all the life you lived and all the love you gave." All of us will reach our final chapter someday, but how that chapter ends depends greatly on how we choose to live today. Don't be afraid to speak your heart. Don't hesitate to text your children, your friends, or someone who once mattered in your life. One phone call, one hug, one simple message like "I still miss you" can soften the emptiness in both hearts. And if you're reading these words right now, there's something I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart. You are not invisible. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. We see you, we hear you, and every comment you leave below is a way for this community to say, we're still here, together. If this message touched something inside you, I hope you'll leave a note even, just a single dot, to let us know you were here. You are not walking through this season of life alone. There is a quiet but lingering fear that grows with the years. The fear of being forgotten. The fear that after we leave this world, no one will remember our name. No one will retell the stories that once had us in them. And I believe that if you're in the later stages of life, at some point you've probably wondered, will I leave anything behind when I'm gone? I once had a friend, Elaine, 84 years old, a former nurse in the military. She spent her life caring for others, giving without ever needing credit. But now, living alone in a nursing home, she whispered something to me that I will never forget. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of disappearing, as if I had never existed. Those words pierced my heart because I understood that fear lives in many older people. The quiet worry that they will no longer be remembered, no longer live on in someone's memories. But you know what? There's something I deeply believe. We don't need to do grand things to leave a legacy. Every kind act, every piece of advice we've passed on to our children or grandchildren, every time we listened with our whole heart, those are the imprints we leave behind. You might not realize it, but you may have changed someone's life simply by being there, in your quiet, humble way. So if you've ever worried about being forgotten, try looking back on your life. The family meals you prepared, the handwritten letters you once sent, or even just the loving look you gave someone when they needed it most. None of that disappears. It lives on, in memory, in the hearts of others, even if they never say it out loud. And if you're still reading these words, I invite you to leave a comment below. Share something you've done in your life that you feel proud of, no matter how small, because maybe, just maybe, your story will be the light someone else needs to ease their own fear of being forgotten. Don't stay silent. Your voice still matters. Your presence still echoes. Growing older is not the end. It is a new chapter, slower, deeper, and richer in love and meaning than ever before. The fears we've just shared, from being forgotten to feeling like a burden, to the quiet pain of growing distant from our children, are not signs of weakness. They are proof of a life lived with sincerity, love, and sacrifice. If this video made you nod, smile, or even shed a tear, please leave a comment below. Tell us, which part of this message spoke to your heart the most? Or, what will you do starting today to live more fully and meaningfully? Don't forget to click like if you found this video valuable and subscribe to stay with us. A community that believes aging still holds so much beauty, dignity, and purpose. Thank you for being here. You are not alone. We are walking this path together with awareness, with gratitude, and with the belief that growing old is not a burden, it is a gift.